Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, 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 no, 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 no. Melanated minds with the crown restored. Asiatic truth that we cannot ignore. Honor to noble Drew Ali, we rise. Nationality reclaimed, open your eyes. Hey, hey. Love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, the spark. No more strangers walking in the dark. Research first, let the facts ignite. Real Morse talk every week, truth over hype. This is knowledge, this is heritage, this is consciousness. Welcome to Real Morse Talk with your hostess, Prime Minister Durriyyah. Hey. Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, no, 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 no. Shadow hour. 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 You are now tuned into Real Morse Talk. Melanated glow, crown back on the throne. Asiatic spirit, yes, we finally home. Honor noble Drew Ali, we proclaim. Nationality restored, we reclaim the name. Yeah, yeah. Love, truth, peace, let it spark that fire. Freedom, justice, lifting hearts higher. No more strangers, we know our part. Real Morse Talk, truth from the heart. Real Morse Talk, truth from the heart. Real Morse Talk, that's right. Yeah, na, 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 na. Shadow hour. Yeah, na, 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 na. Shadow hour. Yeah, na, 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 na. Shadow hour. Yeah, na, 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 na. That's it. Rise up, rise up, rise up. That's it. Rise up. This is heritage. That's it. Rise up. This is consciousness. That's it. Rise up. That's your heritage. That's it. Rise up. Never haven't been. That's it. Rise up. This is heritage. This is consciousness with your hostess, Prime Minister Durriyyah.
Islam, 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 Islam Moors, and welcome to Real Moors Talk. We're here on another episode of Real Moors Talk on this June 18th of 2026. First and always, I want to rise up and give praises to our Creator, whom I choose to call Allah, for allowing me to wake up this morning in my right frame of mind with my good common sense, life, health, and consciousness, with the ability to stay on this road, the Islamic road, because sometimes it's rough and sometimes it's smooth. I want to give honor to each and every one of you who found time to come out today on this topic of Real Morse Talk, because we always have to have conversations and discussions. Sometimes discussions are hard discussions to have, but they have to be had. And I'm just grateful to each and every one of you that come each week and support me in my mission to uplift fallen humanity. So I just want to thank everyone for doing that. I also just want to thank everyone for the prior week when the Grand Sheik was on. You know, you all really supported the, topic that we talked about. And we'll come back and talk more about that 14th Amendment, because it's really important. I think it's so misunderstood, the 14th Amendment, and how people really misinterpret the 14th Amendment, because remember, it was all about the Dred Scott decision, who they said could never be a citizen of African descent. So we're going to go back into that. But right now, our topic today is Juneteenth. Yes. And I wanted to bring the topic to Juneteenth, and I am dressed in my Kente cloth. And we're going to talk about that, the Kente cloth and our different colors and things to express ourselves. Because I think a lot of us melanated people, especially Moors, for some reason, we don't think that we connect with our brothers and sisters, from different territories. We don't think that the Kente cloth belongs to us. We don't think that the colors belong to us. We don't think that wearing this clothing belongs to us, but we will kill ourselves wearing those colonial occupiers' clothes. You will bust your behind in those jeans and whatever clothes they tell you, sneakers or whatever, but you have a problem with dressing like this. So it's a misunderstanding. So I hear so many more go hard on what they want to talk about and law and order and all of that. They think they know so much, but yet you always looking like an occupier. So, you can't, can't have it both ways. You can't have your foot halfway in and halfway off. So that's it. But anyway, so we're going to talk about Juneteenth today. And I just want to give a special honor to those, who found time to type in the chat too, because we have a lot. I try to answer as many questions as I could. And as we go through these, whenever I'm here, on Real Much Talk, I will always go to the chat and see what you have to say, because your opinion is really important to me. We know the general opinion is no proof of the truth, but without opinion, we cannot have conversation. So I'm just so grateful today. So I want to read a little bit to you all about Juneteenth, because a lot of people misunderstand Juneteenth. Yes, it happened in Texas, but Juneteenth should be celebrated all over for every one of us. And let me just say this before I start reading. Every holiday, every single holiday is a man or woman made holiday. So it's not no holiday that just popped up and it's a holiday all on its own. Every celebration is created by man or woman. It is. But it's the significance in the celebration of the holiday, what it means to you. And that is why I do not celebrate European holidays, because those holidays are designed for them, for their people, their culture, their desire, whatever they want to. Most of their holidays are made on falsism or either off of doing something drastic to us, murdering us, killing us, lying to us, stealing from us. Their holidays are based off that. That's what their celebrations are. Our holidays are based on cultural events, things that we as a people should celebrate. And give you an example, Prophet Noah Drali told us about that whole thing with December 25th. And he was like, look, you cannot take something away from a people without putting something in place of it. So I'm going to take that December 25th away from you, because that's the worst holiday you could celebrate. It's a total lie. And I'm going to give you my born day to celebrate. So that way you have a celebration of a gift exchanging and holidays and cooking and eating and sitting with family and friends. So we know who Prophet Noble Durriyyah is for certain. We don't know about a whole lot of other prophets that came before us that people have told us about, and we've read historical records on information that people have told us. But we have actual people who had live, or some may still be alive today, but in my family who actually walked with the prophet, talked with the prophet. You know, that's in the founders form, the reincarnated prophet. I even know people that sat with Timothy Dingo-Il, Richardson Dingo-Il, you know, German Bay. So I know people that sat with these people that we know about. Okay. So for all the other people that are here on this earth, that were here on this earth, I don't know about them. I can only read about their historical events. But Prophet Noble Jolly is a modern day prophet in a modern day time. And so I know about him. So I recognize him. I celebrate him. Now, we talk about the forerunner Marcus Garvey. We're going to talk about that a little bit because Marcus Garvey was into the whole Negroism degree. So Marcus Garvey came from Jamaica with a nationality, but he taught Negroism. And so that's where the prophet had to say, well, he set the foundation. Now I have to go ahead and I have to correct the language because we're not Negroes, colored folks, black people, Ethiopians, etc. So people may not like what I'm saying, but it's just a true matter of the fact that it is what it is. And so now we're going to talk about celebration of holidays. So we know that June the 19th, which is tomorrow. I'm so excited about tomorrow. It's on a holy day. We do not have school on Fridays. So I will not, I will try to relax. I'm not spending any fiat in any European establishments tomorrow. I did whatever I needed to get done today because I'm doing some crochet projects for our sister circle. We have well, it's not just sisters. We have a brother in there too, but it's the Threads of Determination is our crochet circle, and we're doing lots of projects in our crochet circle. So I wanted to make sure that I did not spend any fiat tomorrow unless it's in an Asiatic establishment. And so I trust some of you are joining me tonight. And if you are, you can take pictures and send it with you have your Kente cloth on or you have your red, black, and green on. We're going to talk about what those colors represent and, just the whole Juneteenth. So sit back, listen, be patient with me. Get out your pens and paper to take notes as I give you historical information on Juneteenth. And I'm giving you information that you can research for yourself. I had one parent send me something about they don't recognize June 10th, so their children won't recognize Juneteenth. Let me say this really quickly. If you don't know about information, if you don't know about a thing, you cannot have a conversation about a thing if you don't know about it. You can't have conversation if you just don't know. And so therefore you need to know or be able to have a conversation. So if someone asks you about Juneteenth after today, you can have a conversation about Juneteenth because we teach it here at our school. I teach about Asiatics in our school. I teach about civil rights at our school. These Asiatics did not disappear. Civil rights was not about all the people in civil rights were not agents and all of this stuff. That's just so misconstrued that we can't see our nose despite our face because we have so many misnomers about true information, and we act like the people that fought for us, that marched, that got on buses, that Moors don't get to live all those benefits. You get to ride a bus being a Moor because people died for that. You get to go into grocery stores and purchase food in the same places that Europeans do. Not that I really want to, but because people died for that. People died for your equal rights to protection. People died to make sure you had the right to vote. People lost their lives. And that is not no fantasy or fiction. It's real. So we have to stop pretending like what these people do not matter. And, because we Moors, none of this matters. It's false. And I'm telling you, you're losing the value of your own people because you're too busy trying to be different. The difference in them and I is I know who I am nationally. I took out my nationality. I was fortunate. My parents, my father was born into this. He gave it to me, so I had it. But I also wanted to proclaim my own nationality, and I did so. I'll never forget that experience when I went to proclaim my nationality. And the people at the temple, that particular temple, they was like, well, even though you have a nationality card, we still want you to stand up front. You know, a lot of temples did all that kind of stuff back then. Long story short, so I said, fine. I already had a nationality card. I gave them a copy of my card. They took the information off my card, copied it on a new card. So my nationality I've had since birth. So I don't need to challenge anyone about my nationality because I know who I am. I know for certain I'm not Negro, Black, and color. But I also know that people who call themselves Negro, Black, and color fought for my right to be able to say who I am today. These people died so that I can have certain rights. And I will never forget these people. I will never not celebrate. I will never, never, never turn my back because I got a chance to be awakened to who I am. So you have to think about that. All right, I'm going to take a sip of water and I'm going to start reading. I'm so excited about today. I'm so excited to be able to share this information with you all today. All right, boys. So what I have is a true history and legacy of Juneteenth. And I am going to put my peepers on just to assist me with my reading because I want to make sure that I read clearly to you all what I have to say. So please sit back and listen well, and take notes and type in the chat if you'd like me to clarify something that I'm talking about. All right, so Juneteenth marks June 19th, 1865, which was 61 years ago. Tomorrow, it will be 61 years. The day Union General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, to announce that the Civil War had ended and that enslaved people were free. Although the Emancipation Proclamation had been issued more than 2 years earlier, many people who were enslaved in Texas slaveholders continued to hold people in Texas in bondage and refused to recognize the proclamation. Now remember, the proclamation was talking about Confederate states. And so the state where the people were that we're talking about on Juneteenth is a misunderstanding. People think this wasn't a Confederate state, but Texas was a Confederate state. So those people should have been freed when the Confederate states were told to let them go, but these people did not free them. Okay. Juneteenth has become one of the most significant commemorations in American history because it symbolizes both the delay enforcement of freedom and the determination of formerly slaveholders to keep people enslaved, to preserve the memory of emancipation. They did not want to let people go. So President Abraham Lincoln, who at the time was the president who issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, during the Civil War, the proclamation declared that enslaved people in Confederate-controlled territories were free. So that's what the proclamation was all about. The people in those territories, Confederate territories, were supposed to be freed. Now remember, the Confederate people did not want the people to be free. They wanted to keep them enslaved and have them work for nothing to be able to kind of profit off of it. All right, so it did not apply. Okay, so however, the proclamation had important limitations. So there was limitations to this proclamation. It did not apply to slaveholding border states that remained loyal to the Union. It also could not be forced in areas where Confederate authorities still maintained control. As a result, many enslaved people remained in bondage despite the legal declaration. Texas was particularly affected because of its distance from major battlefronts and its geographical isolation. So it was been said historically that because of isolation or where Texas was at this particular time, that no one really heard about. These people knew about the Confederate people who ran the territory, but slaves did not hear about it. They did not want them to hear about. Okay, so they wanted to keep control. News traveled slowly, and many enslavers deliberately withheld information regarding emancipation in order to continue benefiting from forced labor. So I want you all to listen to what I'm saying. I'm reading you what I wrote about it from my research. As a result, slavery continued in many parts of Texas long after the Emancipation Proclamation had been announced, and even after Confederate military resistance had largely collapsed. June 19, 1865 was considered Freedom Day. And when General Gordon arrived in Texas, he was accompanied by 2,000 federal soldiers, these troops. He issued General Order Number 3, which declared, the people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This announcement represented one of the final major enforcement actions of emancipation in the United States. For many newly freed people, this was the first official confirmation that slavery had ended. So that's a big deal because these people, I'm sure day after day, night after night, like, when am I going to be free? Like praying and to whatever God of their understanding and trusting and, that they were going to be freed at some point, with whatever God of their understanding, why are we this being done to us? So I'm sure this was a really big relief of freedom to find out that they were free. So people immediately started celebrating, calling this Juneteenth because it was a combination of June and it was on the 19th of June where they were told that they were free. Now, during the early times of Juneteenth, prayer services, community gatherings, family reunions, music and singing, storytelling, educational programs, and shared meals and cultural celebrations took place. These annual observances help preserve the memory of emancipation and strengthen community identity. But now let's look at who created Juneteenth. Because a lot of people are saying the Europeans created Juneteenth and they made it a holiday and they created Juneteenth. Well, just listen. Juneteenth was not created by a government agency, politician, or corporation. It was not. It was created by the people who were formerly enslaved. These descendants who began commemorating June 19th in 1866. Generation after generation continued the tradition despite political opposition, segregation, and social discrimination. In modern times, one of the most influential advocates for Juneteenth recognition was Opal Lee. Now, a lot of people don't talk about her and they don't want to give credit to her. Okay, but Opal Lee, often called the grandmother of Juneteenth, through decades of activism, education, and public awareness campaigns, helped bring national attention to the holiday and contributed significantly to its federal recognition. All right, to the sisters, yes, yes, yes. We always fighting for what is right. Remember her name, Opal Lee. All right, we know that she didn't know who she was freely, but Opal Lee. Okay. Following Reconstruction, many Southern states enacted Jim Crow laws designed to limit the civil and political rights of the Asiatics of African descent. We know that they issued these whole Jim Crow laws. All right. And so they wanted to do that during this period. Celebrations were often discouraged or restricted. So people who still lived on plantations, but at this time were getting some type of wages, or people who had moved out and purchased property for themselves or whatever, were discouraged on celebrating Juneteenth. These European colonizers didn't want us to recognize Juneteenth. All right. Because many public spaces were unavailable, Asiatics of African descent communities frequently purchased their own land for celebrations. One notable example was Emancipation Park in Houston, Texas, established in 1872, specifically to provide a place for Juneteenth observers. Okay. As the 20th century progressed, Juneteenth celebrations declined in some areas due to economic pressures and the Great Migration, during which millions of Asiatics of African descent people moved from the South to other parts of the country. See, that happens when we start moving around and assimilating. However, the holiday never fully disappeared. It came back during the Civil Rights era. During the Civil Rights movement of the 1950s and 60s, Juneteenth was renewed. Okay, Activists connected the ongoing struggle for civil rights with unfinished promises of emancipation. Juneteenth became more than a celebration of freedom. It became a reminder that legal freedom does not automatically produce social, political, or economic equality. So just because we were free, we didn't get the things that we needed socially, politically, or economically, like the prophet told us. All right, so now what happens is for decades after activists worked to secure official recognition of Juneteenth, okay, Texas became the first state to recognize Juneteenth as an official state holiday in 1980. Following nationwide discussion about race, history, and justice in 2020, support for Juneteenth expanded significantly. On June 17th of 2021, Joe Biden signed legislation making Juneteenth a federal holiday. I want to stop there for a minute. Because you see, our people were celebrating it long before it became a federal holiday. And we should never expect these people to celebrate anything in reference to us. So even if they never made it a national holiday, it didn't matter because I celebrate Juneteenth every year, just like I do Kwanzaa. You know, I celebrate Asiatic holidays because every holiday is a man or woman holiday. Woman or man make these holidays up, but the significance behind the holidays is what we celebrate. And so we celebrate in freedom because these people in Texas, when others were walking around free, they were still in bondage because no one told them that they were free. So that's what we celebrate. We're celebrating them finally getting freedom. With this order that came through, finally they were able to say they were free and be able to walk off those plantations. Now, some of them still had consequences because some of those slave owners still didn't want to let people go, and they would shoot them down. Sometimes they would let them walk off, and then they would track them down and kill them, etc. You can imagine the things that they did because they just did not want us to be free. All right. But Joe Biden made a federal holiday. And what's good about it is a federal holiday. If you work on a job, just over broke, you get paid for it now as a holiday. That's probably one of the benefits if you work at a job is you get the day off, depending on what job you work on. Because I called a couple of places today to see if they were closed, and they said, "Oh no, that's not a holiday. We'll be open tomorrow regular hours." So only banks and post office and things like that, but a lot of companies do not celebrate Juneteenth. They don't want to recognize it at all. And it was a man on TV. It was on Roland Martin showed the clip of him saying that we should not be celebrating Juneteenth because the real emancipation information didn't take place until December. But what he's talking about is absolutely false. Juneteenth is a celebration. He's not talking about why Juneteenth should be celebrated. It celebrated the freedom of the people from the Confederate States. And his statement was that Texas was not a Confederate state, but that's a falsehood. Texas was a Confederate state. So even though it was a Confederate states, they were told to let go of slavery. It's still a celebration for us because it made a chain reaction to others letting go of slavery. All right. Okay. All right. So why this matters, it is more than a celebration of the end of slavery. It reminds us that freedom delayed is freedom denied. Freedom delayed is freedom denied. Okay. And highlight the distinction between legal declarations and live reality. The holiday reminds us that many people had to continue struggling for generations to secure rights that existed on paper but not fully recognized in practice. All right, so today Juneteenth has an opportunity to honor our ancestors who endured slavery and oppression, preserve historical memory and cultural heritage, educate future generations about emancipation and its legacy, celebrate resilience, perseverance, and community strength, reflect upon the ongoing pursuit of justice, equality, and opportunity. Juneteenth will remain an important holiday, and if you do not desire to celebrate it, it's up to you. You have the right to choose. You have the right for whatever your reasons are. You know, you have the freedom to choose. I came today bringing you the reason that Juneteenth should be celebrated and why I'm celebrating it in my garb. I have my Kente cloth on, and celebration of Juneteenth. All right. All right. So now connecting Juneteenth to some very important information. All right. Juneteenth also gives us the opportunity to talk about freedom, citizenship, nationality, and the business of memory. As we move to celebrate Juneteenth tomorrow, a deeper question should come to our mind. What are people celebrating on June 19th? What do you think that they were celebrating? Right during the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s, Juneteenth experienced renewed interest. Activists connected the ongoing struggle for civil rights with the unfinished promise of emancipation. Juneteenth became more than a celebration of freedom. It became a reminder that legal freedom does not automatically produce social, political, or economic equality. It did become a federal holiday, but for me, it didn't matter if it became federal or not because I celebrated anyway. And so that did not matter to me, okay, at all. All right, so I wanted people to know that. Okay. All right, so as we honor our ancestors on Juneteenth, and we ask ourselves whether people celebrating citizenship because they didn't know they were citizens or not citizens. Were they celebrating nationality? I don't think that really came to their mind, but it's a good question. And were they celebrating equality because they didn't make things equal because they were free? Okay, so these are some questions that still remain about Juneteenth. Now I want to talk about the commercialization of Juneteenth because a lot of people, that's why I don't celebrate it because it's commercialized. Every single holiday is commercialized. Asiatic History Month is commercialized. I mean, turned it from a day to a week to a month, and it's commercialized. Every holiday is commercialized. So, except for the ones they don't celebrate, they don't celebrate January the 8th. We're not asking them to. So, it's not commercialized in that world because we don't celebrate the Prophet's born day as a commercial identity. We don't do that because it's not in their system and they'll never recognize it as a holiday. El Malik El Shabazz born day. We celebrate that as a holiday. I do, but they don't celebrate it. They will never celebrate it. So therefore, that's not a holiday to celebrate. So remember, only holidays that are celebrated by them are those that they commercialize because they do it to make fiat off of the people. That is the reason they commercialize it. So let's talk about that. Many corporations now sponsor Juneteenth events. They sell Juneteenth themed merchandise, create marketing campaigns, and issue public statements recognizing the holiday. And I was laughing because I think it was the year prior. We went to the dollar store. They had everything for Juneteenth from napkins to table accessories to everything using our red, black, and green and our Kente cloth prints and everything they had is celebrating. But listen, if you want to sell, these people are in business to make fiat. And if you want to dress your whole house up for Juneteenth or your backyard and have a cookout or whatever, like people do red, white, and blue for July 4th, knowing good and well we don't have nothing to celebrate. But so many Asiatics celebrate July 4th. I even see Moors celebrating July 4th. I hear Moors lie so badly talking about, well, that's the day my family decided to get together. So all the European holidays, they celebrate them. They got a reason for celebrating, from Easter to Christmas to whatever. They celebrate all of them. Thanksgiving, they celebrate all of them. When they was popping our necks and all that, they celebrate it. But when it comes to holidays that we recognize as melanated individuals, we want to criticize it. We always got something negative to say. And I'm not saying do things for the Europeans on that day. I'm saying do for you and your family. Like I'm going to call my grandchildren tomorrow and we're going to read a story because normally they're here when I'm celebrating, but they're not here right now. So, I can call them and celebrate with them about Juneteenth tomorrow and read historical information. And I wrote a story on Juneteenth and the celebration of AGX. So I create stories and things for our school. And I also sell them. Some schools are now looking into purchasing some of my stories that I celebrate. They're trying to work with the language because a lot of them still want to use African American and they want to know if I could change the language for their school. And I will not change the language. I will not compromise. So I'm meeting with them to get them to see the Asiatic is an identity for us. And I say people of melanated complexion, I could do that for them, or Asiatics of Moorish descent, but I will not go to the Afro, Negro, color, black degree. But these are things that we should do. Sit our children down, sit our families down, and do some traditional foods like okra gumbo. Yum, yum, yum. It don't have to have any flesh in it. With okra gumbo, you do chickpeas and okra and sauteed vegetables and tomatoes. So good. And you can do a tortilla or do a chip, or do fufu. If you're depending on your diet, you can do brown rice, white rice. You can do so many things. I'm more of a brown rice individual. I do like jasmine rice from time to time, but I try to stay away from all those things that are white. I try to get foods that are wheat and things like that, healthier foods. But we can celebrate with a good food and a good dish. We can make something traditional for us to sit down and eat and talk to our families and have a good time tomorrow for Juneteenth, because we're celebrating us. That's what we're celebrating. All right. Others question whether commercialization risks reducing a serious historical event into a marketing opportunity. The concern is not merely whether people celebrate Juneteenth. The concern is whether the historical meaning is being replaced by consumer activity. If a holiday becomes centered on products rather than education, people may remember the celebration while forgetting the historical and legacy context of what made it a holiday. Are we preserving the meaning of Juneteenth or simply participating in another commercial holiday? Emancipation versus equality. Juneteenth commemorates emancipation. Emancipation means release from slavery. However, emancipation did not automatically produce equality. After June 19th, 1865, enslaved people faced numerous obstacles. We faced economic dependency, political exclusion, violence, segregation, limited educational opportunities, and restrictions on voting. And we're going to talk about that because a lot of Moors still do not vote. I heard a brother today, Sean, was listening to a program he wanted me to hear where he calls himself a Malcolm X voter. Well, we know that he changed his name, corrected to El Malik El Shabazz. Our people need to get that right and call him who he desired to be called before he transitioned off this earth. But I don't care what kind of voter you are. The main thing, again, I'm going to say about voting is if your vote did not count, they would not fight so hard to keep you from doing that activity. You have to think about that. No matter how much you want to fight about it, you have to think about why would a people go through all this if that vote did not matter. Okay. All right. Freedom from slavery was a monumental achievement. Yet many Asiatics of African descent quickly discovered that freedom and equality were not the same thing. Reconstruction eras, unfinished experiments following the Civil War. The United States entered a period known as Reconstruction. Reconstruction attempted to rebuild the nation and define the status of formerly enslaved people. 3 constitutional amendments emerged from this period. The 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery except as punishment for crime, which we know that that's the 13th Amendment with 20 sections. So the way they try to still today keep you enslaved is they lock you up. If they lock you up, you become property. So that's where our brothers should not want to be locked up, or sisters. The 14th Amendment defines citizenship and promised equal protection of the laws. That is why they fought against the 14th Amendment. Not that it was a harmful amendment. It restored citizenship to the Asiatics of America of Moorish descent because of the Dred Scott decision. Okay. The 15th Amendment, which perhaps prohibited denying voting rights based on race. And when the prophet said that if the Declaration of Independence had been followed, where it said that all men were created equal and free, and if all men were created equal and free, there would be no need for the application. He didn't say it wasn't needed. He said it would not have been needed if they treated us the right way, but they did not. So because they did not, we got the application of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. That was for our protection. Okay, so a lot of you Moors got it wrong. Okay, got it wrong. But You have the right to your opinion. All right. These amendments represented significant legal changes or lawful changes. However, legal changes do not always produce immediate social changes. Within a generation, many of these gangs were weakened through segregational laws, voter suppression, and unequal treatment. Citizenship versus nationality was a subject in historical and civic education distinction between the two. Citizenship generally refers to an individual's legal relationship with a government and the rights and obligations associated with that relationship. I'm going to read that again about citizenship for all you all who do not want to be citizens, because if you are not a citizen, then you don't need the Constitution. The Constitution applies to citizens, not non-citizens. I'm going to say that again. Citizenship generally refers to an individual's legal relationship with a government and the rights and obligations associated with that relationship. Nationality refers to a individual's national identity, heritage, or membership with a nation or people. Throughout history, many groups have struggled over questions involving identity, nationality, citizenship, and political recognition. These discussions continue today in various communities and movements. Understanding these concepts requires careful examination of historical documents, constitutional law, treaties, court decisions, and governmental records. Civil rights and human rights. Another important distinction between the two. Civil rights are protections granted by government through constitution and laws. Human rights are generally understood as rights that belong to all human beings, regardless of governmental recognition. Throughout American history, many movements have fought to expand civil rights protections because legal recognition often lags behind moral principles. Juneteenth reminds us that rights can exist in theory while remaining inaccessible in practice. That's what happened. It was supposed to be free, but yet they were not free. Okay. The Dred Scott decision and its legacy. To understand why Juneteenth carries significance, many historians examine the Supreme Court case known as the Dred Scott versus Sanford decided in 1857. The court ruled that people of African descent, whether enslaved or free, could not be citizens of the United States under the Constitution. That decision further declared that Congress lacked authority to prohibit slavery in federal territories. The ruling is widely regarded as one of the most controversial decisions in American history. For many observers, the Dred Scott decision exposed a profound contradiction. How could a nation proclaim liberty while simultaneously denying citizenship and constitutional protection to an entire class of people? The Civil War, the abolishment of slavery, and the Reconstruction Amendments would later overturn major aspects of the Dred Scott ruling. The 14th Amendment in particular established birthright citizenship and sought to eliminate many of the legal barriers reinforced by Dred Scott. Things we need to know. One of the central lessons connecting Dred Scott, Reconnection, and Juneteenth is the difference between legal rights and actual conditions. A right written into law is important, but the practical ability to exercise that right is equally important. Historically, repeatedly shows examples that rights exist on paper but not in practice. Laws promised equality, but social resistance implementation did not happen. Freedom was declared but delayed, and citizenship was granted but challenged. All from us. Juneteenth serves as a reminder of this reality. The Emancipation Proclamation existed in 1863. Many people did not experience its effects until years later. This was a lesson of historical information. Okay, this information encourages every generation to examine legal promises are being fully realized in daily life. Okay, and so a lot of us do not really recognize or know that our rights are still being challenged every day, even as individuals. And if you yourself want the right to be able to vote then you have to look at the things that are happening. And some of you all say, oh, well, voting doesn't matter. And listen, I'm not here to convince you to vote or not to vote. I'm not doing that. Even with Juneteenth, all this ties in. What I am saying that you should examine the reason that the 14th, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were established. There's a reason for that, because we were denied our rights. And the 14th Amendment had everything to do with the Dred Scott decision. And so you need to actually read Dred Scott and learn about Dred Scott. And maybe on one of these calls, we'll go over the Dred Scott decision. Maybe we'll keep this moving and we'll do next the Dred Scott decision and how the amendments fall in, and, invite Taj back to go over information and things like that. So me, I do historical information. I do my own research. It's important for me to do my own research. So when I'm talking to you all, I have a lawful information from where I'm coming from. But that does not mean every decision that has been made that I agree with every single decision that has been made, because I do not. Now I want to ask you all, since I gave you all information about Juneteenth in the chat by just conversation, let me know whether you would now recognize Juneteenth. I'm not saying celebrate it, because I celebrate it. I love it. But would you now recognize Juneteenth for its significance, because the people in Texas that were not freed are still our people? Their burden is our burden. Their fight is our fight. The prophet said that the Negro problem is our problem. He didn't say over here in Barbados. He didn't say over here in Jamaica. He didn't say over here in Trinidad. He said the Negro problem is our problem, and it's being solved only as it can. And that's through the Moorish National and Divine Movement. It's the only organization on this earth that can solve the Negro problem. All right. So I'm going to go to the chat and take a look at some of the comments. And just by saying yes or no, would you now recognize from the information that you have now, or doing more research of your own, would you now celebrate? Excuse me, not celebrate. Let me go back. Would you now recognize? Because I celebrated. Look at me. All the glory and beauty. I'm celebrating it tomorrow. I'm celebrating it again on Saturday. They're having a big thing here at the mall with his brother. That I got my outfit from his store. They're having a African cook feast out celebration. And I'm going to be there, and I'm going to celebrate as much as I can. My people, I love my people. I'm like the prophet. He said, I love my people, and I desire the good works for our people. I love my people, whether you love me or not. I love my people, and not using the word in the love as I love you, like that type thing, but love because I love the connection that the prophet brought back to us from each other, that connection, that vibration to one another. And I do not use the word love lightly, because I don't come around saying I love you, I love you, I love you. But what I'm talking about is the vibrational connection. When I see a turban or a fez, I get excited. When I see a garb, I get excited. Outside of my window the other day, I seen some sisters over there look like they may have been from North Africa. I'm not sure. I was listening to their dialect. I was excited. I'm excited when I see my people and our women. I'm excited about us. And we should learn to be excited about one another. Let me just, when I put this lip gloss on, my granddaughter had me purchase sometimes. I don't know why it turns white, but anyway, I'm going to go to the chat really quickly and just take a few minutes to drink some water. Love water. We should all be here drinking water. All right, let me go to the chat. All right, and see what some of you all have to say. All right, let's go. And then we'll move on. All right, so Libe 2334, love to peace, freedom, and justice, Islam, Islamism, Moors, Muslims, noble, shukran, shukran. Praise Allah, supreme honors to the holy and divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali, born January 8th, 1886, in the state of North Carolina, prophet of the 1913 AD Moorish Science Temple of America. All right, shukran, for you remind us every single week. I appreciate that. All right, I really do appreciate you reminding us that's every single week. Okay. All right, someone said the more 74, just signing in, I guess. All right. All right. Let's take a look at what else. All right, so Libe always, if you all in the chat listening, he always reminds us that ancestral, let's see, Moorish American Muslim ancestral land, the Ali Bay, Ali Bay. Let's see, we have Ali, what did he put? Ali Bay in Eel. Cook County Recorder's Office Deeds, Book 521, page 579. Okay. All right. So just remind us of where we can find the information. All right. Then he said the 14th Amendment non-federal identification document of 1857, Dred Scott slave named the additional sigil of the 14th Amendment Federal Identification of Social Security Administration, 1935. The Moore 74, love, true peace, freedom, and justice forever. All right. Let's go. See. All right. And we got Lee Bay 2334 again. Home, residential, and store, shop, business, company, brand, faculty, facility, factory, merchant, manufacturer, supply chain, workplace, employment, both the real estate, land, property, deeds, economics. Okay. All right. Nationality in the real estate market. Let's see. Just telling us more and more. He's study typing that information in. All right, so I'm trying to see if we have anyone else. We appreciate you, Lee Bay 2334. All right, Madudi. All right, Islam Prime Minister Bay and all who care about the fallen humanity. Much love and respect. Let's agree to disagree without being disagreeable. Absolutely. All right, Denzel Early 55. I wonder if police realize we have been freed. Oh my goodness, that's a good one, Mo. Shukran for that. They know we've been free. They the same ones that those occupiers who didn't want to let us free. They know we've been free. All right. Moors are the founders of the civilization, first people on planet Earth, the great pyramids builders, Moorish science is the world's most ancient philosophies, the Moorish Empire, the first world order. All right. Let's see. The origin Christianity, the organic Christianity, the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Mother, the Son, Asir, Aset, Oris, Sun, Moon, Stars, Crescent. All right, Mary, Jesus, Mother, and Son. So I think some of your information is incorrect because, first of all, Jesus is not a name for the man we call Yeshua. His mother didn't name him Jesus. So you're still using colonial occupation in this that you're giving us. And her name was Maryam, not Mary. Jesus was not the name. And Christianity has never been our religion. So I just want to clarify that. Christianity has never been our religion. All right. All right. Okay. So we got Lee Bay is slowly loading us up. All right. Lady Thorough, Islamism, Lady Thorough. All right. Sister BGL Islam, my sister. Islamism, my sister, also. All right. Let's see. Anyone else? I had a questions as solely Queen. All right. So my question, let's see, Shukran Prime Minister, as I thought it was a newly created holiday for commercial purposes, I will recognize and now do further research. All right, Shukran, Miss Jazzy, 1960, because a lot of people had that misconception. But we have to remember that even so, like their Christ Mass, what they call Christmas, their Easter, their Thanksgiving, They even took Martin Luther King Jr.'s born day and commercialized it. So the European, when they say, yes, I'll make it a federal holiday, they're looking at how they can make their pockets fat. But we don't have to recognize it as a commercial holiday. We recognize in the freedom that took place for us as a people. And even though a lot of the states were still considered, a lot of the states, the Confederate states were supposed to let them go, but they didn't let them go in Texas. So when we celebrate us. And so that's what we need to know, the celebration. But if you want to just recognize it and don't celebrate, that's fine. But recognize what took place. That's all I'm not saying for our people is learn to recognize information without throwing it out. Just throwing it out because you believe the Europeans made it up. So if I'm having a conversation, this is the danger about knowing information. And I used to tell this story, and I don't know if I told it on here before, but it was a brother that was in school with us, and he was raised, unfortunately, by Europeans. Unfortunately, his parents were on drugs, whatever, etc. And so these Europeans decided to raise him. But we were at this convention at Nursery. It was a big old thing. We're all dressed, and we was all dressed up. And so Europeans love to talk about Martin Luther King. They hate El Malik, but they love to talk about Martin Luther King. So we were having these conversations about Asiatics and historical events because I'm always going to drop knowledge. I don't care. I'm going to drop the knowledge. If I'm talking to you, I'm going to drop the knowledge. And so we were talking. So they brought up, well, Martin Luther King, all that he did to make us, share with them and to make sure that we shared with them and things like that. So they wanted to make sure that, we understood that they recognized Martin Luther King. And I was like, okay. So I'll never forget. So the brother comes over and he says, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? And so I tried to tell him. He went over and got some, punch, and they had like punch with 7-Up and whatever in there. So he went and get some of that for me, but I never take a drink from someone ever. If someone makes a drink, I do not drink it. So he didn't know that, but yes, I don't drink it. If someone makes a drink and my eye's not on it, I don't care if it's fruit punch. I don't care if it's ginger ale. I don't care what it is. If my eyeballs are not on that glass or cup, I do not drink it. If I don't know you, I'm not drinking it. So anyway, so that was the whole thing with that. So I was telling him, so he said, oh, we talking about Martin Luther the Saint. That's what he said. And I said, no, we talking about Martin Luther King Jr. His name used to be Michael, and he changed it to Martin after the Saint Martin. But his name is Martin Luther King now. He changed his name. Everybody, you have the right to change your name. So he was like, his father changed his name too, or his father. I said, I believe his father's name was Martin in the first place, and his name was Michael, but he wanted to be a junior. So I don't know how it goes. So anyway, I was like, I have to do more research on it. That's what I said to him in the conversation. So he was like, I still know Martin you talk about. So I pulled him off to the side and I said, are you telling me that you do not know who Martin Luther King Jr. is? All the Europeans just about know who Martin Luther King Jr. is. They didn't teach me that in that school. I don't know nothing about Martin Luther King. I said, well, I'm going to give you a quick history on Martin Luther King because that's all you're going to hear these Europeans talk about. Want to let us know that they admire somebody, that worked for us. So they're going to kind of let us know, that they recognize him. And so my whole thing was, even if the school had just told them about who Martin Luther King was, or he learned about it in a book, or even his parents, that when this conversation came up, he could join in it. You never wanted to be in a room where you are not able to join in the conversation. So you want to be an erudite. And that's one who's well-read. So I hear a lot of Moors lie about what education means, have no idea what education means. They want to be erudites, claim that they're erudites, but the language they speak is very bad. The way they type and write is really bad. And they want to act like they're these intellects, but you can't have a conversation in a room. Because if you don't know about Juneteenth, you can't conversate about it. How can you say you don't recognize it, you don't celebrate it because of what it's about, and you have no idea because you have not done the research? And that's all I'm saying, Wars. We have to learn to be able to have conversations and have hard conversations. and be able to talk about information, even if we disagree, without being disagreeable, as Brother Madudi has said earlier. So these are the things that we need to learn about and talk about. And so I'm saying, asking you this question, just type in chat, would you recognize it? Now, I'm not asking nobody to do what I do. I celebrate us. I'm celebrating us. You don't have to do that. You can maybe just recognize now that you know the difference. All right. All right, this says government subsidy, welfare assistance equal food, housing, education, medication, unemployment benefits, pension, retirement. Now, I see you saying that, but a lot of people get those benefits. Okay, a lot of people more get those benefits. That's why they want to do the private and public. In my private, El Malik El Shabazz, but in the public, Maurice Lawrence. That's the kind of thing they do. So I can get state governments and all this. So I've got two names going on there when that's a fraud. The prophet said, do all of your new business and your new name, give all of that belong to Rome back to Rome. Give them back their name. Give them back all of that. But we try to make it something else. So shukran for that. All right. So Sheikh Bilal says, great lesson, because if what people are doing aid the uplifting of us, then it's a good thing. Islam Shukran. Purple 7 Hawk, gratitude and unconditional love. Islam, most same to you. A true shame that is many of us with original DNA codes were raised under that notion. Right, you're right, and we think, and that's a very important point that you made, Purple 7 Hawk, because our people think that it's freedom. They think that thinking like the colonizers, that's freedom. And they mix that in more science, and it has no place there. So instead of celebrating us, we assimilate into this government, and in assimilation, we assimilate more science into this government. And that's why I have a problem with it. I don't say I wear jeans. I wear shirts. I wear clothes that purchase out of the store. I do too. But do I prefer those clothes over my own traditional clothes and clothes? No. So most of the time when you see me for any event, I'm always dressed in garb, always dressed in our clothes, our ancient garb, calling it garb, ancient garb. I'm always dressed in it because to me, that's important to feel like me. I love me. See, I'm proud of who I am, and I make no mistake about it. I'm very proud. I'm proud to be melanated. If I could be darker melanated, healthy darker, I would, melanated without trying to do something to my face. I love my kinky hair. Once they told me, oh, your hair not kinky. Yes, it is kinky and curly because that's natural. Because she doesn't want to recognize her hair kinky and curly. So if she says to me, oh, we have kinky and curly hair, then she's recognizing that like it's a shame in having kinky curly hair. I know some of you on that Farrakhan trip where he lied and said our hair used to be straight. That's a big old lie. Our skin used to be lighter. That's a big old lie. That's a lie he told way back years ago. That's a big old lie. I don't know where he got that from because he's light in complexion and he's mixed, that he want to put that off on everybody else, but that's not the truth. The closer you are to the sun, the deeper your complexion. That is truth, fact. Biology, chemistry, that's science. That's knowledge. That's adaptation. All right. All right, let me see. Okay, see. All right. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay. Color, destination, Negroes or persons of the African race. Color persons, color race. It doesn't state black people. All right. Okay, let's see. We still got our brother is loading up the chat. Let's see. He must know about the number 9. Yes, they do. They must know about the number 9, which represents divinity. Absolutely correct. The number 9 is a very, very important number. And a lot of us don't realize the number systems. Like a lot of people don't want to get their charting done. I had Madudi do my chart for me. And it's so good. And what I love about it is he done it all by hand. So I have my numbers and everything that reflects me in that chart, and I have it posted on my wall, like right here where I'm sitting. I can see it straight across there when the door is open. I can see my chart. And I mean, excuse me, when the door is closed, I can see my chart. And I love having that information because I have no problem with being us. I have no problem with being us. It's white and black don't mean none. Okay. Oh, okay. You're talking to someone in the chat. White and black don't mean none because what are you? Right. So, and we know we go over it over again. And I think that most Moors know, they know, right, that they're not Negro, black, and color, but some of them still want to claim that. That brings to a very important thing where a lot of Moors are trying to go back to the Indian. They're calling themselves Indians, Blackfoots, and Cherokees, and all this thing. But do you not realize that the Europeans, those colonizers, are the ones that created the Bureau of Indian Affairs? They're the ones that's running it. They're the ones that gave the names to the people and renamed the people and rebrand the people. So you're still taking on another brand when you go back to the branding method. I think that we have a really hard time accepting ourselves as being Moors. For some reason, we just want to be something else. The prophet said, be yourself and not someone else. So I'm not quite sure why we have a hard time adapting to ourselves. All right. So if there was anything else in the chat, let me see. It says Janet Kennedy, 9221. Thanks so much for helping us free our minds with this knowledge. I didn't know about Juneteenth until 10 years ago, and I'm 65. Sister, you're not by yourself. A lot of people, I remember I used to celebrate Kwanzaa with my children. And people was like, well, what is Kwanzaa? They had no idea of knowing. And then people came with all this stuff about Moringa, Milana Moringa, Karinga being molesting children and da da da. Them Europeans put the same story out about all our leaders. They did the same thing with Dr. York. The same thing. They keep putting the same information out there. And, I wasn't there, but I'm sure he did not, do what they say to the children or whatever. But they want you not to recognize the holiday, so you'll connect the holiday because he's the one that brought Kwanzaa to us. I'm not celebrating that holiday because of the man that created it. But yet, what I see is I was listening to this podcast, I have to share, where the brother said that he had a really hard time voting for Kamala Harris. He said that it was a very hard decision to make between Kamala Harris and Trump. Now, again, I'm not trying to tell people how to vote, but people should vote in their best interest. The prophet said, out of the worst, the wise finds means of good. So out of the worst of the two, Trump was the worst. And you can see it today. Now, all those people that would support him, a lot of them, they trying to make it like, well, he was a sign and all this stuff. No, that's not what y'all was saying. Be big enough to say that you were wrong. Because you a Moorish American, Trump don't care nothing about you. You melanated. And because you are, he want to make sure he can take everything from you that we fought for. Everything that we fought for. And while y'all sitting around trying to boast of the tables and things there of no worth, this is what the prophet said. And I'm going to try to quote chapter 26. The gifts of understanding. It's called unity. The prophet said, the gifts of understanding are the treasures of Allah. And he appoints to everyone his portion in what measure seemeth good unto himself. Hath he endowed thee with wisdom? Hath he enlightened thy mind with the knowledge of truth? Those are two questions. Communicated to the ignorant for their instruction. Communicated to the wise for thy own improvement. True wisdom is less presuming than folly. The wise man doubteth often and change his mind. But the fool is obstinate and doubteth not. He knoweth all things but his own ignorance. The pride of emptiness is an abomination, but to talk much is the foolishness of folly. Nevertheless, it is a part of wisdom to hear with patience their impertinence and pity their absurdity. Yet Be not puffed up in thy own conceit, neither boast of superior understanding. The clearest human knowledge is but blindness and folly. The wise man fills the perfection and is humble. He labors in vain for his own approbation. But the fool peepeth in the shallow stream of his own mind, and is pleased with the pebbles which he seeth at the bottom. He bringeth them up and showeth them as pearls, and with the applause of his brother delighteth of himself. He boasts of attainments and things thereof no worth, where the shame to be ignorant, he hath though no understanding. Even the path of wisdom he taught after folly, and shame and disappointment are the reward of his labor. Morris, we all should read and know Unity, chapter 26. And those two questions, had he endowed thee with wisdom? That's the first question. Yes or no? Have he enlightened thy mind with the knowledge of truth? Yes or no? If so, you communicated to the ignorant for what? Their instruction, and to the wise for thy own improvement. More, there's a lot that we could learn. See, I know some of you all, and I hate to say it, but don't even read the Quran. Everybody want to prove that it was written by Levi, yada yada, this book, that book. Levi got it somewhere else. All books that are ancient, a lot of texts that were taken, including that Piscine record some of you all love, was taken from other books. So that's not my fight. Is the information in the book making any sense and relevant to the situation and the things that you are in? You all love reading from the congressional records, right? You claim that you know the congressional records, and half the time what you're reading from has nothing to do with the situation, but you want to feel adept or astute, so you read from it. And it's not dealing with what's going on in modern day society. We can write our own records. We can create our own laws. The prophet said, in language to improve thy society. We could do those things, but yet we do not. We're too busy wanting to fight about what we should and should not do as far as celebrating all of us as a people. I don't have no problem in the world with my brothers and sisters in different parts. I have no problem with them at all. Absolutely none. And so I'm going to celebrate my people as much as I possibly can. Everything we do, I'm going to celebrate it if it's worth celebrating. I'm going to recognize it if it's worth recognizing. I don't need a federal government to tell me to recognize things that belong to myself. And neither should you. And neither should you give them that much credit to think that they had anything to do with making this a holiday. Does anyone remember the woman that I said that made it a holiday? Do you all even remember her name? Opal. That's who made this a holiday. She fought, a woman, a sister, scratched for it to become a federal holiday. That's what she did. But me celebrated whether it's a federal holiday or not. I don't care nothing about these Europeans recognizing my holidays. Even when I was on a job, let me tell you, I never worked on January the 8th. Never worked on January the 8th on my holiday. Did not work on December 6th on my holidays. I did not work on January 15th, my holidays. I didn't work on those days. And didn't ask for nobody's permission. I took the time off. Now I told them, when of your holidays you want me to work on your holidays, I'll be more than glad to work on those holidays and get that double time. But on my holidays, I do not work. When I got in position where I could take off Fridays, I didn't work on my Fridays. But I'll work Monday through Thursday. I work on Saturday and I work on Sunday. See, Morris, we have to take a stand and stop fighting each other on things that belong to us and try to embrace that. You know, why are we trying to make people who celebrate Juneteenth feel bad? Oh, it's a Texas holiday. It's a universal holiday all over for Asiatics of Moorish descent because it was a day of freedom. Anytime we can celebrate any freedom or recognize any freedom, let's take it. Let's take it. These are our clothes. Do you know Europeans wear these clothes in celebration of so-called Black History Month? There was I'm gonna share this with you. When I went to this is everyone's place. It's here in DC. And when I first moved in this area, I could not find my canard because yes, I celebrate Kwanzaa. Yes, yes, yes. I could not find my canard. Oh man, I looked high and low, and I finally realized maybe some of the stuff that I had not unpacked yet, it must still be in that. So I went to everyone's place to get a canard. When I got upstairs to the everyone's place upstairs, because when you go into a small place, and when you go in, they have where you can go upstairs, and they have books and all and other things all up in there. So I found a canard. I was so excited, but I couldn't get anyone to assist me with the canard. And so I said, "Oh, well, I'm gonna pick it up. Should I pick it up? Should I leave it there? I don't know how to do it. That was my first time at everyone's place." So I said, I want the canard. So I told the sister that was there, I said, I want that canard. She said, okay, I'll be back. So I stood there and stood there and stood there. I said, what's taking her so long? I know they're busy. It was during that time of year where Moors celebrate Kwanzaa, etc. Well, Asiatics of Moorish descent. I don't know. Some of you all Moors may not even celebrate Kwanzaa. Probably don't even know what it really stands for. So anyway, this European woman comes up the stairs and she picks up the canard. It says, yes, I'm getting that canard. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. No. I am buying that canard. I'm waiting for the girl to come back to write my ticket up for it, write the thing up for the canard. Oh, no, I called them about this canard. I said, I don't know about what you did, but that canard belongs to me. I will never forget how I felt when the man came upstairs at everyone's place and said, oh, no, we're selling it to her. He took her over me. I never went back to everyone's place until recently. That was back in 2006, I want to say. 2000, no, I apologize. It was 2014. It was December 2014, December 2014. I'm trying to remember the date. It was only recently when I went back to everyone's place when my daughter was doing her music video, and everyone's place. We wanted to put one of the artists that works with her, Amashandra, wanted us to do everyone's place because it was the Asiatic landmark. That was the first time I had been back to everyone's place since 2014. Now I go back, but I reminded them of that thing, of what happened. They gave that last canard that I stood there for almost an hour for a European because she was having a fit about she wanted it. It wasn't her celebration or her holiday. This is why I say when we assimilate, but yet they decided to sell it to her. And I was so hurt by that. I really was. I was hurt. And when I say hurt, because I just felt like at one time that we could have stood up for each other and told her, no, this is sold, because the girl had already told me that I could have it. It was the last one. They gave it to her instead. And that really cut me. And so I didn't go from 2014, December 2014, to my daughter did her video a year ago. So this is 2026 and 2026. That's how long it was before I went back to everyone's place. Because listen, if you mistreat me, and it could be my own, and you mistreat me, I'm not going to go back. But I decided to give it another shot because that was so long ago. And sometimes we make errors. And that was an error in judgment that was made. But I wanted to continue to support us. So I decided to go back to everyone's place and give them the opportunity to make me feel important again as a customer. That my melanation matters. Now, the brother that was there at the time that did it, I didn't see him there. But the owner, the lady that I know, I believe she's the owner or manager, she was there. And I had that conversation where I had to let her know that I was still hurt by that. But, it's a new day and a new time, and I'm ready to give them another chance. So now I'm doing that. I'm giving them another chance. Sometimes we have to give each other another chance. But I know a lot of times, a lot of places, they serve those Europeans like they're more important. They will leave you to go serve them. They would yes, sir, yes, ma'am, them, and everything, and give them all of the treatment good and treat you like trash. And so when I go into stores that do that, I don't patronize those stores. When they act like that, like we're second class and they're first class, I do not do that. And so, and with Moors that try to treat me like I'm trash. I don't care you. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow you to disrespect me because I'm not going to disrespect you. Telling the truth is not disrespectful. Whether you like it or not, we have to learn to tolerate that truth because we've been lied to for so long. Lied to over and over again. Just like on Juneteenth, they never was told slavery by not telling them. People think, oh, not telling them wasn't lying. Absence of the truth is a lie. And they didn't tell them about their freedom. And we need to treat each other better, and that's what we need to do. We need to continue to uplift fallen humanity. The prophet said the whole purpose of the organization is to uplift fallen humanity. That was the whole purpose of the organization, was to do that, uplift fallen humanity. That was the purpose. All right, I'm going to go back to the chat again really quickly and see what we have here. All right. All right. All right. So Islamism, or Sheikh Bilal, Islamism set the record plain and straight, Prime Minister. All right. Baltimore City, Maryland. Okay. All right. So we got Brother Lee Bay 2334 is lighting up the chat again with some information. He's talking about the Washita. This is not the segment I'm going to talk about that on. Thank you so much for helping us free our minds with knowledge. I didn't know. Okay, I read that one. All right, shukran, shukran. All right. So I want to move forward with this lesson. So I'm asking you, as more so after today's episode to examine with care, because the prophet said, examine with care and fix not suddenly. On your present choice depends your future happiness. That's not only for marriage, choosing a wife or a husband, that's about life in general. Examine with care and fix not suddenly on your present choice. Every choice you make depends on your future happiness. Yes. So I want you to examine with care and fix not suddenly. That examine with care and fix not suddenly on June 19th. Okay. That June 19th, it gave generations of people something to feel good about. It gave them the importance of what happened on June 19th. It gave them the opportunity to know what happened. All right. So, what do you think? And I'll put another question in the chat. I'd love for you all to respond back in the chat. So, what do you think that our responsibilities are now in today's society, that we know that freedom came and it wasn't given, but now that we know what Juneteenth is all about, what do you think is our responsibilities in today's society with it? I can tell you what I think our responsibilities is to educate the masses of our children about Juneteenth, to educate mother, father, sister, brother, husband, wife. I don't know, consort, whatever you all want to call them, consort, whatever you want to call what we should educate. Because listen, when we have a free mind, a free individual mind, when your mind can be free and think freely, that's one more individual that's free in the mind and not shackled by the mind. But freedom of thought is so important. And we have to have freedom of thought and freedom of consciousness. So, what do you think? And I invite you to type into the chat. What do you think that now that we know, what do you think our responsibilities are now that you know about Juneteenth? All right. I shared what I thought what our responsibilities are. What do you think our responsibilities are about Juneteenth? I'll give you a few minutes to put into one of the things that I really enjoyed about things with Juneteenth is that on the woman Opal Lee, I wanted to put her. So what I did was I looked up some research on her. It was not a whole lot of information. But what I want to do is for the children for the incoming school year of 2026, 2027, She's going to be one of our historians because, see, one of the problems with us is we don't have enough history about ourselves. And a lot of Moors are so against learning about the people who fought for our freedoms that they don't want their children to learn about these people. Like, these people died and fought for freedom. To be more, for me to be able to say I'm Moorish American, that I'm not Negro, black, and colored, to be able to purchase a home, a car, all these people fought and died for me. There's no more name anywhere, no more is where it say Bay, Ali, Ill, or nowhere in civil rights history or any other histories where it showed that we fought to get anything free. You know, even the Moors that they talk about, the only one, and his name was Bilal and Phoebe, and their name was Muhammad, and he wore fez every day, and their names was Muhammad. That, you know, they fought for freedom, and, you know, I told the children about that story. So we need to start being able to tell our children about historical information that we've done. Like Taj is a historical icon, so we can talk about him. I have, you know, our defying minister, our defense minister, Sheikh Kareem Muhammad Bey. I wrote a story about him because children need to know about him and his fight about fighting the Europeans about the right to travel. That was his big battle. And we have to create our own legacy books. And Taj and I were saying we're going to get together and put a whole legacy book together about some of historical Moors. You know, the children get to learn about Prophet Noble Jali. But we tell them about Marcus Garvey, but Marcus Garvey didn't call himself a Moor. He didn't practice Moor science. So you have to see, you have to wake yourself up in the mind, Moors. You really have to start doing some examination of what you're trying to say historically that people don't count. Because they do. You have rights and privileges that you act like you don't want because people fought for you to have those. So you can't erase these people historically. And you can't act like they didn't exist. And you have to stop going around lying, talking about they was all agents. And you have to stop acting like things that do not matter because they do matter. So now that we're learning information, and I'm going to go back again to the question about Juneteenth, let me see what you think we should be doing. So I have Nubian Emperor, Ashe Mobile. I have Jane Kennedy, 9221, share, care, and support Islam. Miss Jazzy, 1960. We need to keep record of our history as we have lost much. We have to change that for future generations. Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to change the whole concept. And listen, they took our history out of books in the public school systems now. So we don't get, now our children don't get to know nothing about us. Even though they were calling us African American or black or colored people, they had some kind of historical content to be proud of because, listen, everybody didn't wake up at the same time. Some of you all say you nationalize and still calling yourself black, still calling yourselves Moors, still have no nationality card in your pocket. And if you do, you're not using it. So you cannot take away historical information and true factual events that happened. The bus boycott happened. The marches happened. Harriet Tubman, someone told me, I will never forget, a sister told me that Harriet Tubman was farce. Harriet Tubman happened. You know, these are things that people act like. Carter Woodson happened. These people did not have their free national names because they came out of slavery. And they did not know who they were. So now to fix that historical information, we as Moors should be making sure our documentation is changed, is corrected, so we can put our Bay Ali and Ills on information and be putting in his record books. Because I started my history book for my individuals, and I call it the legacy book. And it should keep growing and keep growing. I don't want nobody just tell me about Maurice, the saint who practiced Christianity. He didn't practice more science. And far as I know, he dated Europeans. I mean, these people historically that you talk about are Moors. They didn't even date their own people. They wasn't even with their own people. So, and they did not practice more science. They did not practice Islamism. So they want to be bragging about people because they are in our Moorish legacy. But what did they do to make sure we were free? What did they do to make sure we learned our legacy? It wasn't until Prophet Noble Jali, he came to our territory in 1907, started pushing more science in 1912, and set up the first organization in 1913. That's who told us who we were. Other people had plenty of opportunity to do so, but they did not tell us who we were. So no, we didn't just become Moorish in 1913. History teaches you that. Historical facts teach you that we've been Moors even before when the word Moor came about. We established and took on that identity because of the place and the people, and the spelling was different. So we can go back and tell our legacy, but what about our legacy today? What about our legacy today? These are the things that we need to talk about. I'm going to go to the chat again one more time. The Holy Divine Prophet gives us our land, property deed, and puts the politicians in our Capitol Congress, Washington, D.C., all in 1928. Bilal, Islam is in the dishonor day, adds to us being more conscious. Islam, I self-law, and master. Islam. All right, Moors, and so we have a good 26 minutes left before our segment ends. And so I wanted to constantly engage you all in the June 19th information, but I have a little bit more information about that I want to get out to about the more science about, Juneteenth. So I love, Roland Martin. I always talk about Roland Martin on the TV show because I do love Roland Martin, even though he's one of the ones who still, I think he knows who he is, but he would lose his audience if he told everybody who he was. He would lose his audience, and so he's trying to keep a captive audience. I'm not trying to keep an audience of negativity. I'm not trying to lie to the people and keep an audience. That's just not how I do things. So I'm going to share my information with you. And I know a lot of times you all like, when Taj is on and Taj talks, whatever, but Taj has a lot to talk, and he's on a lot of different programs. You can see him on different programs and things like that he does come on the air on to see that. And from time to time, he will stop by here on Real Morse Talk when we have conversations. But just like you saw Taj and I conversing, that's how we talk all the time. We're always trying to find out the best way to knowledge of the people. And listen, we all have our opinions. We all have our information. We all can read from documents that are considered factual records or whatever, but that doesn't mean I agree with everything. It doesn't mean everything that's put on paper does not mean I agree with everything. There's some things that I have questions about. I have the right to question that. I have no problem asking questions because I want refinement and answers, because I am truly an erudite. I'm not someone who wants to be one. That's what I'm very well read, and I'm very well educated. And I'm not talking about educating the European public school systems. That's not the education I'm talking about. My education and my expertise is in more science. So I do have that information in more science. I'm very proud of my legacy. I was taught by masters, and I appreciate them. I give much honor to them today because I sat down and I listened to what they had to say. And I wrote information, and then I did the research for myself. So not just sit there and they told me this and everybody told me this. Okay, you said that. Okay. Wrote it down. Then I went and did the research. And that's what you do. Okay, so you can sell well-rounded, well-read. And listen, you can have a conversation with anyone. Anyone You should never have a problem having a conversation with anyone about anything if you're well read. Okay. So those are the things that we want to do. All right. So with the Juneteenth, what I thought about for me, Juneteenth, is that because we already dress in garb at our school, our students wear dashikis or t-shirts, and they wear fez caps because they do have gym, PE, they have physical education, and they got to move around, and sisters wear turbans on their head. And so I'm thinking of next Juneteenth, it'll be on a Saturday. But I'm thinking of a day of celebration, like when we do our last Thursday of the month at our school. I'm thinking about taking the very last Thursday of the month. Well, we usually do our celebrations for school being out, but maybe the Thursday prior to that, on do a Juneteenth celebration and have fun. And we usually like to cook in the kitchen. So I was thinking about maybe making a traditional dish that we could probably like make every year and just have some fun and have our kente cloth on and things like that. So that's what I was thinking about. So what I want to do is I want to go over the different colors of what they represent for us. Also, a lot of us don't know what they represent. All right. All right. Says we all, Jazzy, Miss Jazz 1960. We all have our own path to walk, and some are here to sharpen us. Islam, yes, we all have our own path to walk, and I feel my purpose. Like I feel like an educator. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited that I found my purpose. I'm just excited about that because I get to share what's in here. I get to share that with those who are willing to listen. I get to share that information. And whether you agree or disagree, it's okay. I'm able to share it. And that's the beauty of it. So, what I was thinking about is the recognition of the colors. And on the true history of Juneteenth, the colors of Juneteenth and the significance, the meaning, symbolism of the kente cloth, the kente cloth, which is what I'm wearing. And there's different types of kente cloth. Sister BJL Ill's husband gave me some beautiful kente cloth that are African kente cloth because he has a lot of friends. When he was still living, I met a lot of people he knew from different territories, from, around the diaspora. I met people from Jamaica, Africa. I mean, he really connected with a lot of people. And so they gave me lots of materials. But I have this one beautiful kente cloth that is considered original kente cloth. And so I have not even cut it. It's so beautiful or made anything from it. A lot of my clothes I do make, and so I haven't done that. But the kente cloth, so what it represents is heritage, identity, culture, and historical memory of the kente cloth. So it has that meaning where community responsibility, preserving our strength and our culture. And if you notice, the kente cloth has the red, black, green, and gold in it. It has those colors in there. Okay. And so heritage, identity, culture, and historical memory. Why history of Juneteenth heritage? Let's see. Why freedom comes with responsibility. We will explore the true history of Juneteenth heritage, identity, liberation. Okay, and what the kente cloth means. So here we go. So the red represents strength, resilience, and sacrifice, spiritual power. So the red represents strength, resilience, sacrifice, and spiritual power. And I got these definitions of these different colors, and I've had them in my archives for a very, very, very long time. And this came from elders. And if you look up these colors, even in different circles of vibrations, you will find that it's very, very close to what I'm reading. Okay, green represents growth, prosperity, agriculture, and hope. The gold represents wealth, wisdom, achievement, and the future. And just so you know, this Kente cloth is more than fabric. It speaks a language. Each pattern carries a message. Each color tells a story. It represents history, family, tribal connections, achievement, community responsibility, legacy, freedom. Okay, that's what this Kente cloth represents. And that's why I'm dressing it today, because I wanted to bring to you the full experience of Juneteenth. When you see the people celebrating Juneteenth, in recognition of Juneteenth, don't mark them. I remember one brother was laughing, talking about, yes, that's all them Negroes did was march. All they did was chant and march, chant and march. Chant and marching got you the ability to get on a bus. Chant and marching got you the ability to go and eat anywhere you desire to go to. Chant and marching got you to go to any school you desire to get into. Chant and marching got you to be able to breathe, think, and eat for yourself. People that died for me chanting and marching, I give you much honor and respect for chanting and marching, marching and chanting, sitting out in those places, going to places like Woolworths and sitting in those seats at Woolworths, getting beat up against your head, crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge, getting your brains and all that knocked out to show something. Yes, because there's sacrifice. Movement always takes sacrifice. But some of you all too scared to even make a sacrifice. Recently, we had an Asiatic brother, and I don't know if he looks at, any of the videos about Morris, because, a lot of us have videos and people watch and listen. But he fought for his rights in his car. He was like, he asked to speak, so that's why I know he's probably read the Right to Travel one that I wrote, or Charles wrote a book similar, and then someone else may have written one too, where you ask for the supervisor. He asked for the supervisor. And because he did, that European took those handcuffs and used them like brass knuckles and beat him all upside his head and face. On camera. On camera. There's still sacrifice. We are not where we need to be, but he took a stand. I don't know if he knows who he is nationally. But guess what? He's suing them. And they try, because he took a stand. There's always sacrifice, Moors. Ever since we accepted and assimilated into this man's world, it is a sacrifice to be who you are. And I'm going to honor all those who sacrifice. So I like riding a car. But if I had to catch a bus, I can do so today because of sacrifice. If I want to go to a European restaurant, which I have no desire to do, I can go and sit in a seat because of sacrifice. If I want to go to their colleges or any college or school or whatever and get decent books, that took sacrifice. Blood, sweat, and tears on ancestors' sacrifice. It took sacrifice. Harriet Tubman, because she spoke up, she wound up getting a brain injury, which caused her to have epilepsy for the rest of her life. Sacrifice. There are people that we can remember today who did what? Sacrifice. So when I say the colors red, black, and green, I'm not talking about black for the people. I don't care nothing about black. I know I'm not black. I care black for the people. The black represents the earth, the land, the clay. It does not represent the people. So you could be red, gray, and green. Who cares? It could be that. But when you know who you are, you have no problem representing those things that lead to freedom. Prophet Noble Drew Ali never told us not to be with our brothers and sisters. He never told us. He told us to come and join him because you are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, Ethiopians. He didn't say, once you proclaim your free national status, turn your back on your brothers and sisters who have not waken up yet. That is not what the prophet said. But yet, Moors will lie and say the prophet said this and that, but you're talking to someone who has literature, records, and people that was living during the time of the prophet. They can tell you better than most what the prophet said and did not say. All right. So when people try to change the record, I do correct it. A lot of people hate me doing that, but I do correct it. Now, if you want to modernize the record, I have no problem with that in modern times, as long as you don't take the content away from the record. It's all right to modernize. It's all right to update it in these modern day times, because that's how we'll get our children to read it. These people that they call millennials and Gen Zers and whatever other name they come on to the people, they would like more modern language because they think that things are archaic and ancient. They're not from my generation where, it may have been archaic and ancient, but when you read records that were archaic and ancient language, you felt like, wow, I read something. I read this important ancient document, right? Because the language made the document ancient. And so you know that it was an ancient document. You felt so good about reading it. Well, today's generation don't care nothing about it being ancient. They want everything modern day time. So you always keep the ancient record. Always. But you modernize it where people can comprehend this information for today. All right. So that's what we do. We, on our online school for Moist Children, we try to bring our children to focus and keep them in modern day time, but still tell them about our heroes, our sheroes and heroes. And listen, people say heroes die and they're not here to tell the story, but that's okay. Someone else is here to tell the story. All right, someone is here to share that information. So, we say a lot of things out of our mouth, but I have to say, I want you to take the time to examine how much of you is into assimilation. How much of you have you put into assimilation now that you can't even tell truth from falsehood, that you can't even tell, what's something for your people, that you are so into assimilation that recognizing your own people and giving honor to them and what they celebrate is a problem for you. So you sit back to Europeans and talk about that Juneteenth is a made-up holiday. That Juneteenth, people didn't even get, slaves didn't happen during Juneteenth. The Emancipation Proclamation was written here in 1863, and people were freed in 1863. So that's the wrong date, and yada, yada, yada. When historical facts show when this Order 3 was done, and those people got a chance to get their freedom that day. Can you imagine? Let's walk down historical lane for a moment. Can you imagine being on a plantation, working, sweating, and you don't know when your next meal is coming from? And I'm going to put examine as a sister. So I'm a sister saved. Back then, they gave us names like Alicia, Olivia. Let's say Naomi. I like Naomi. Let's say Naomi. All right, that's an Asiatic slave named Naomi. So let's say I'm Naomi. I'm the slave Naomi. Back then, I'm going to walk down historical lane. And I just pushed out a baby last night. But I don't get a chance to feed my baby because I gotta feed the plantation owners' children. My baby crying and hungry, gotta shut up, and I need to make that baby quiet or I'm gonna get whipped. And I'm feeding somebody else's child my baby's milk. And they come and say, you free at last. Thank God Almighty, Allah, Creator, you're free at last. Think about that. Somebody tell you free. I'm sweating, pouring down. My head is wrapped up. I got my clothes on. My boobs is hurting because I'm feeding these children that ain't even mine. And my children still hungry and screaming. And somebody come and tell me I'm free. I probably would have dropped that baby straight on the floor. I probably would have dropped that baby straight on the floor. I'm telling you. And grabbed my babies and just went to running. Just went to running. Can you imagine? Can you put yourself in a scenario where you're not afraid to see yourself there? take the vision of our ancestors and put yourself in their place in Galveston, Texas, and you found out you free after all this time. You free now. Imagine you, brothers, if you out there in a plantation picking tobacco or cotton or whatever they had in Galveston, Texas, and you're in the field sweating, hungry, can't wait for your wife to fix something to eat at home, but she can't get home in time because she's nursing them European babies, those plantation owners' babies. And you so hungry, you just lose your mind because the hunger now slips your mind because somebody say you free. They shout all slaves are free and you free. You have an emotional breakdown for a minute because you've been on the plantation 13, 14 years or more, and now you free. You don't have to answer the Master Charlie anymore, and you free. Put the prophet said, put yourself in the other fellow's place and do unto others as you would have them do what? Unto you. Can you just imagine yourself down historical lane? So when they shouting and dancing and singing and happy and free, you want to take that away from people? Because they were told they free, and then generationally, if that was my great-great-grandmother, and she celebrated, and my grandmother, and then they're told because of Jim Crowism, I wouldn't celebrate that Juneteenth nonsense. You need to put a cap on that. You need to put that in the private. Don't bring that out in the public. Don't wear them clothes. Don't dress like that. Calm down those colors. All those things. Now you got your freedom. Now here come good old Jim Crow. Here come Jim. Now, after Jim, the black codes. And you're constantly being suppressed. After you were taught you free. Can you imagine? But you do not want to give honor to those people who were freed and to the respect of the day that they chose, because the Europeans didn't make this day, we did. We have the right to make our own holidays, our own celebrations, our own recognitions. We have the right to do so. Can you imagine? Could you just imagine? Islam Wars. Grow and develop as nation, we might have said. That's Nubian emperor. All right. Islam, shukran. All right. So we're about to wrap up in we have 5 minutes. So I do want to go and talk about I just want to thank, Sheikh. I want to thank everyone, for coming out. I want to thank the Grand Sheikh for coming out last week, and he's going to come back again, and we'll do another segment for you all. I know some of you all really enjoyed that segment, and we'll do another one for you, and we'll keep it moving here at Real Morris Talk, because our goal is to share information, talk about events, historical information, talk about our nationality, our birthrights, our religion, who we are, and have hard conversations, the conversations that other people do not want to have. All right, that's what we do here on Real Morris Talk. And I have to, someone said, that's not Real Morris Talk, and this is Real Morris. I'm a real Moor talking out my mouth. Tosh is a real Moor talking out his mouth. This is Real Morris Talk. That's what it is. All right, so Morris, please donate, and I want to thank Madudi for donating he donated to the Doors of Drew Ali, and he told me it was some kind of spam message that came up that said that we were not a legit organization or something to that effect. Somebody spammed it or put that there. And they may try to take you to another site to try to get you to donate to that site. So please make sure that it's authentic. It says $ Daughters of Drew Ali, just like you see it there. Make sure and check it out before you send any donations. Also, online schooling for Moist children. Morris, I want us to remember that our online schooling is here for all Moors, all children of Asiatic descent, all of them, African Moorish descent, that's what our school is for. And so we have our school, and our summer school program starts the first week of July, but we do our last day of our regular school is Thursday, June 25th, 2026. And we'll start our new school cycle in September, all right, of 2026. So, but continue to donate to our online schooling MC. So it's $ online schooling MC. Daughters of Drew Ali is $ Daughters of Drew Ali. And shukran for your donation, Brother Madudi. We really appreciate that donation. All right. You can also purchase our books at circle7publishing.com. Some of you all wanted the unconstitutionality of the 14th Amendment and we're having trouble with a gateway. So we're looking into the gateway of why some people are having trouble purchasing from there. But you can contact us at 443-910-7739. That's 443-910-7739, or email us at realmorsetalk@yahoo.com. That's realmorsetalk@yahoo.com. All right. And you can, if you have problem donating, if you don't have Cash App or PayPal or any of those things, you can use our donate button, and it's Morse Science with GSK@DurriyyahBay.com. And always type in what your donation is for, and we make sure that your donation goes to your choice of where you donated it for. What it does go to, that's what we make sure that happens. Okay, Morris, it's been my absolute pleasure to come to you tonight with episode 21. We had 21 episodes. It was my absolute pleasure to share with you tonight about Juneteenth. I trust you wrote down the information. I trust you learned something from me today, because it's very, very important for someone to tell our story. Too long have others told our stories for us. We have the opportunity to tell our stories for ourselves. All right, Morris, again, donate More Science with GSK@DurriyyahBay.com. Purchase our books at Circle7Publishing.com. Donate $ Daughters of Drew Ali. And also donate to our online schooling for Moist children. Okay, MC, and that's how it is pronounced. Morris, until next time, until next week, when we have episode 22, take care of yourselves and each other. You have been on Shadow Hour with Real Morris Talk, and I've been your hostess, Prime Minister, National Grand Sheikah, Durriyyah Bay.